This video is a little bit of a long time coming, but I felt obligated to do it because I have been doing videos on the newest iOS updates for a while now. So I figured I need to do one on this one as well. And I kind of wanted to give Apple some time to filter out any of the bugs that it had, even though it's been out for a while now officially. But I still think that even after alpha and beta and whatever other pre-official version that they had, they still have bugs on release. So I like to give them a few months before they filter out the bugs even on release. So now we're a couple months in, and iOS 18 has been out for a couple months now. So I figured I'd give my thoughts on the things that they added and sort of give people an idea of things that they might have missed out on. Let's start out with Apple Intelligence because it's sort of been Apple's pride and glory with the update. And I already touched on this in the last video I did about Apple, whatever that one was. But I kind of pointed out that Siri is still, even today in 2025. So I had high hopes that intelligence would, maybe improve Siri a little bit. But so far, it seems like that's not been the case, and Siri is still. And not only that, but you can tell here that the intelligence feature is only available on certain iPhones. So if you have the regular iPhone 15 or the 15 Plus, or any iPhone made before that, then you're kind of just SOL on this. But I think for most people, this is okay because Apple Intelligence doesn't really add anything interesting to the iPhone anyway. All right, so customizations, not gonna go deep into this because now, you just have the ability to rearrange the apps in whatever position that you want them to be in. I think for most iPhone users, this isn't really something that you're interested in just because you're so used to having this being pushed to the top side of the phone like it is here. But it is, nice to have options. And in this case, if you wanted to have the option to put the app wherever you wanted to, then you now have the option to do so. Let's move on to the Passwords app. So if you are not already using a password manager, then I know what you're doing, but I would recommend you start using one if you are not already. If you are a person who uses only Apple products, then feel free to use the one that Apple made. It does say that it comes on Windows too if you download the Passwords uh, app for iCloud on Windows. I'm testing out specifically the password manager that Apple created. This is on Windows. So if you're on Windows and you want to use this, then you're gonna have to download iCloud from the store. But if you have, only Apple products, then you don't need to do this process. But I want to test this out. And as a reminder, if you are going to use this, and this in general, if you're going to use iCloud, because you own all Apple products, to use a complex password that has a decent strength to it, because you don't want someone unauthorized getting into your account, even if you have multi-factor authentication enabled, because if you get that notification and you're not the one who's signing into your account, that means someone has access to your account even if they don't, or they're not able to get in because of MFA. So if you are someone who uses a lot of Apple devices, then make sure to use a complex password for your Apple account. But I'm just gonna sign in and see what the password manager from Apple has to offer. And this is what the password manager is like on Windows. So you can see here that it will not work unless you have the extension enabled in either Edge or Chrome, which is kind of a bummer for two reasons. So one, of course you have to have the extension enabled, so some people don't want to do that, like myself. And the second thing is that the extension can only be enabled on Edge or Chrome if you want to use it. So if you're using Firefox or Opera or any of those other browsers, then you don't have an option to enable their password manager on Windows. but on Mac, the password manager does work properly as well as on all Apple devices, which kind of makes sense. So if you're not using one right now and you use all Apple products, then I would at the very least recommend you use Apple's one because it's owned by them, and it'll give you a lot more privacy and security and all that stuff. You know, the things that people recommend these days because hackers are not to be messed with, as they say. But I will mention that the thing about Apple's password manager is that it does not let you generate passwords that have special characters in. So you can, generate one and add a special character yourself. But most websites, or, as we go into the more security conscious world, um, they're gonna require you to include special characters in your passwords. So there's something to keep in mind is that when you're generating one on Apple's password manager, they don't have an option to add special characters. So if you're gonna consider using this. This was supposed to be a video dedicated to iOS 18, but because Apple decided to put in a password manager into this update. So if you don't own all Apple products, and because of that, you don't want to use the password manager that Apple put to this update, then you can go ahead and look at my other video regarding password managers, because it kind of gives a detailed explanation of all the best password managers and the ones that you might be interested in, since you're not going to be using the one that Apple made. And I know I spent kind of a long time talking about the Passwords app, but it is one of the bigger updates that they made to iOS 18. It's because I'm kind of a security and privacy advocate, among other things. I mean, it's good that they made it easier for iPhone to communicate with Android, amongst other things, with messages. But the Password app, in my opinion, is one of the bigger changes that they made. That was iOS 18. Not anything crazy in this update, just a couple of things that they updated. And overall, I think it's a pretty reasonable amount of changes. And hopefully, if there's something that you didn't know before, then now you know about this update if you have an iPhone. And that's going to be it for this video. As per usual, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments.